everyone, Pam Gregory, astrologer. I'm going to be speaking to you today about the second half of September and the full moon that we have coming up in Pisces on the 20th. Now, there's no doubt that the energy is being amped up. We can all feel it. Everybody can feel the intensity. And it's being amped up in one sense in a very good way because we're aware we've got all this photonic energy pouring onto the earth. We are easily seeing the increases in strength and amplitude of the Schumann resonance. That's the Earth's heartbeat, essentially. Again, you can track those to give you the evidence. And also, we're very aware of the sun becoming much more active and shooting off many more coronal mass ejections as well. Again, a good source for that is spaceweather.com. So there's no doubt that cosmologically, physically, if you like, our world is changing, and that is upgrading us constantly. That's upgrading every cell in our body. And I've mentioned again in previous videos that I'm kind of checking that out with my dowsing as well, because other dowsers are saying the same, that this stretch in bandwidth for humanity is just getting wider and wider, and it's rapid. You know, this acceleration of our upgrade is remarkable, how quickly it's happening. People are going in quantum jumps, really, in their frequency, which is really exciting. But equally, and of course related to that, there is greater attempted control being imposed on societies as well. Look at Australia. So we are absolutely, in these next few months, reaching our tipping point. I think there's no doubt about that. It's going to be very intense in these next few months at the 3D level. But of course, you don't have to live at that 3D level. So the big aspects for this year, the dominant squares, as I've talked about before, are Eris square Pluto and Uranus square Saturn. Now, in each of their respective squares, Eris is stronger than Pluto, it's further out, it has a longer orbit. Uranus is stronger than Saturn, it's further out, has a longer orbit. So ultimately, Uranus and Eris, that have very similar symbolism of awakening and revolution and breaking down to break through, are going to win, but not without a challenge. This is what all of this year, and to some extent next, but this year is the most intense, I think, are about. And by the way, talking of intensity, if any of you have any planets or aspects at 24, 25 degrees of the cardinal signs, Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn, you're going to be feeling intensity in some area of your life, because that's where Eris and Pluto are operating, 24, 25 of Capricorn. So, but just know that that is meant to be happening. That's a process that we're meant to be going through, because what this is really about, both of those squares are really about social and political structures that are no longer serving our human evolution, our highest good. They are systems that we have already outgrown. So again, just know that. Then on the 20th of the month, and this is happening at 4:54 p.m. Pacific and just past midnight, 0:54 a.m. UK time, the next day, we have the full moon at 28 degrees, 14 minutes of Pisces. Now, full moons are always times, it's the peak of the moon cycle. It's a time when often our feelings and emotions come to a head in a big way because it's related to the moon, but particularly when it's a water sign and particularly when it's Pisces. Pisces is probably the most sensitive of all of the water signs. So this is deeply sensitive, deeply emotional. And at a full moon, the sun and moon are always opposite each other. So we have the sun at 28 of Virgo, moon at 28 of Pisces. And this is really in astrology known as the health axis, health and healing. And Virgo can be allopathic or alternative health, but it's about health and healing. And, you know, it's very obvious in terms of what's happening in our world. Now, what's also interesting at this full moon is it is virtually at what is known as the anaretic degree. The anaretic degree of any sign is 29 degrees, 29 and that last degree of the sign. In this case, it's not only almost at that anaretic degree, but that 29 degrees of Pisces is the last degree of the zodiac. And I think that's very interesting too, because you go back over the last few videos I've done, very often I was talking about endings and beginnings, you know, conjunctions that are straddling signs. There's been such a strong sense of endings and beginnings. And equally, we have that here because we're almost right at the end of the zodiac. So very clear sense of ending. And of course, with an ending, births a new beginning. Now, it is beautiful at this full moon in that we have the moon conjunct Neptune that rules Pisces. So this is very fine energy. It's very fine perception, creatively, spiritually. This is about your connection to source, your connection to the divine, your connection to oneness. It's that state of, it's to do with altered states where you just get this sense of losing time and space, where you just kind of blend with your surroundings. People have this when they're, you know, creating, they're painting, they're writing poetry, or even sitting in nature, meditating. It can be any of those things that produces this very high level connection. So this is beautiful at its highest level of expression. However, every planet can express at lowest and highest. And one of the lowest levels of expression here, which I think we are seeing in the world in general with that Neptune in Pisces, is confusion and emotional overwhelm. It's all just too much. You know, we've reached the end of our tether in being able to deal with things emotionally. And particularly, as I say, you're looking at this health axis, this Virgo Pisces axis. So it can produce those feelings of it's just too much. But remember, with every aspect, we have the opportunity to play it to the highest or the lowest. What is also interesting about this opposition Sun-Moon that involves Neptune is Virgo is a sign ruled by Mercury, wants to be exact and precise and right and kind of dot the I's and cross the T's and nail everything down, all the facts down. But then in the opposition to Neptune, it can run into this kind of fog of misinformation, disinformation, what's true, what's not, who to believe. So I think this aspect is really encouraging us in our mastery of not going to external sources of any kind for our information, but coming back to our intuition, or reading alternative external sources and then coming back to our intuition. So whether you do that through your dreams, through your meditation, through your dowsing, through your muscle testing, whatever your process is to check in with your higher self, make sure it is your higher self that is giving you the information or the confirmation rather than external sources, because this is all about developing our intuition, which is going to be becoming so much stronger for all of us as we upgrade. So that's a very big aspect of this full moon. Now, another important aspect, this is full of tension, I have to say, also at this full moon. We have about 4 T-squares in this. So one of the T-squares is the Sun and Moon opposite each other, 28 of Virgo Pisces, are tightly squaring the galactic center at 27 of Sagittarius. Now, of course, the galactic center is always there, but when planets align with the galactic center, then we have a kind of almost a fast track, if you like. It's very direct to access the energy with which we are creating our worlds. It also suggests this will be a very important full moon at this time. Galactic center, this is going to be very big. Jupiter rules Sagittarius, and it's at 23 degrees of Aquarius in a beautiful trine, exact trine to Mercury at 23 of Libra. So that is just lovely. It has a sense of expansion. It has a sense of being able to perceive and plan and think about bigger horizons, bigger future possibilities, just bigger visions really for humanity, Aquarius, particularly those connected to freedom and human rights. That's very connected to Aquarius as well. So that's beautiful. Also, there's another lovely trine here between Pluto in Capricorn and the Sun in Virgo. That's about stepping into our power, finding a sense of stepping into our power. Mercury is in one of the T-squares as well. We've had the T-square with Sun, Moon, Galactic Center. Mercury is in a T-square at this full moon with, because it's in Libra, it's opposing Eris in Aries and squaring Pluto in Capricorn. So it's bringing up again, these faster moving planets keep kind of highlighting that Eris-Pluto square, which is all about people taking to the streets, demanding to be heard. Eris is very much about equality. Libra is also about equality, but running up against these top-down rules, regulations, structures of government and big institutions. So that's another T-square here. Another, yet again, another T-square involved at this full moon is between Venus at 11 of Scorpio, square to Saturn at 7 of Aquarius, and Venus is opposing Uranus at 14 of Taurus. Now, this is quite interesting, particularly if Venus, sort of 11 of Scorpio, is moving through your 5th house or your 11th house of relationships in your birth chart. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, you can download a free birth chart from my website. Go to the link below. You can buy a 2-part tutorial video series from my store. You can use that forever to determine the meaning for you of any update I ever do. So Venus comes into a square with Saturn on the 17th of the month, 17th of September. If you're in an unsatisfactory relationship, this can be a time where you feel that the relationship is maybe a little safe and secure, but also controlling, a little bit routine, a little bit deadening maybe. And then by the full moon and beyond that, Venus is then opposing Uranus, and Uranus is the urge for freedom and independence. So that may be the time, if you're in an unsatisfactory relationship, that you just want to say, I'm done. I want freedom. I want independence. I'm off. I'm doing my own thing. So it can create sudden breaks in a relationship. It can also create sudden beginnings out of the blue, unexpected, if you are looking for a relationship. So it can very much operate on that relationship area, but also Venus always has the generalized meaning of currencies. We could see currency fluctuations at this time, much bigger, I think, in October. October is going to be a huge month, I feel. We have another T-square. It's all to do with kind of tension, but also action. Wherever you have squares, oppositions, T-squares, they produce action in the world. Now, this other T-square is between the Sun and Moon again, Virgo Pisces, squaring a dwarf planet I haven't mentioned before called Ixion, I-X-I-O-N. And that is at 29 degrees of Sagittarius. Now, that is the anaretic degree of Sagittarius. So when I go on to describe the symbolism of Ixion, you'll see that there's a kind of unraveling quality to it, if you like, a challenging, a breakdown quality to it. So this is also, by the way, emphasized by the South Node being in Sagittarius. It's our collective past, what we're moving away from. So Sagittarius represents things like the education system, the legal system, ethics in society, religion. So just think to yourself with Ixion at 29 degrees of Sagittarius, is education working well in the world? Is the legal system working well? Are ethics working perfectly in society? Just ask yourself those questions. Now, the information I'm sharing here about Ixion, I very much have to credit the brilliant astrologer researcher Alan Clay, who runs the Dwarf Planet University. He has done this research, so I'm simply quoting it. But Ixion orbits in, well, first of all, they give you a good idea. He is known as the lawless brother of Pluto, the lawless brother of Pluto. Ixion orbits in the Kuiper belt, largely beyond the orbit of Pluto, but sometimes coming in between Neptune and Pluto. Slightly longer orbit than Pluto, 251 years. And in the myth, and I'm going to really abbreviate this myth because it's not pretty, Ixion murdered his father-in-law and he was kind of outcast. But Zeus, king of the gods, took pity on him and gave him a second chance. But Ixion rather blotted his copybook by trying to rape Zeus's wife. So at that point, he was kind of excommunicated and spun off into eternity. Now, when I talk about myths, sometimes people say, oh, it's so kind of vague and abstract, and what does it mean for me? Well, when I started to talk about the Eris myth a couple of years ago, people say, oh, it's vague and abstract, and what does it mean for me? Well, I think we can see, if you think of Eris as the street fighter, just how powerfully Eris has worked in the world in the last 20 months with the protests, the demonstrations all over the world. It's been very clear, very tangible, and very dramatic, I think, because Eris is about the shift of the age. It's a paradigm shift, which is what we're into at the moment. So that's why I'm talking about Ixion. So at the lower level of expression, Ixion is linked to total criminality, actually, and amorality, where Ixion had no respect for any social mores or rules or even human life. And just ask yourself, is Ixion operating in society in any way right now? At the higher level, and again, I'm quoting from the work of Alan Clay, at the higher level of expression, Ixion is beautiful. It's about having your spiritual mission, living life on your own terms, defining your own rules and following your bliss. So is there a sector of society, do you think, that is expressing that higher level of Ixion? I think there is in droves, and the momentum of that is building by the day. And that to me is very much about people breaking away to new earth, defining their own social rules, living on their own terms, finding their bliss. It's another beautiful symbol at the highest expression of Ixion for new earth. So Uranus in its strong aspect to Saturn, Eris in its strong aspect to Pluto, and now Ixion in this powerful T-square, all about the breakdown, creating chaos and trouble. Remember, Eris is the patron saint of chaotic creation as well. It's all the same theme, the breaking down to breakthrough. So know it's going to be a demolition site. Know the demolition is going to get louder, and it is meant to get us through to a different place. This tipping point of the next few months will kind of get us to a very different place. I think even 6 months down the road, we're going to be in a different place. And you don't have to live at the 3D level. And I'm going to come on to that in more detail anyway. So coming back to Alan Clay's research as well, he also said something very interesting, that Ixion transited from Sagittarius into Capricorn in March, April 2020. That was the beginning of the pandemic. Capricorn is linked to big business and stock markets and that kind of thing. There was a big drop in the stock market at that time. Ixion has now reversed, retrograded back into Sagittarius, but it moves back into Capricorn at the end of October. And I think that's going to be very interesting to watch for stock markets and financial volatility in general. Now, Ixion will be crossing 0 of Capricorn. Remember that 0 of the cardinal signs, Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn, they are all known as the world axis. So when planets trigger, important far out planets particularly, trigger the world axis, we see events kind of big time on the world stage. It becomes very public. So that's going to be an interesting dwarf planet that I'm going to be trying to follow as time goes on. Then we have the Libra Equinox, and this is when the sun moves into Libra. This happens on the 22nd of September. It happens at 12:20 p.m. Pacific and 8:20 p.m. UK time. So when we have equinoxes and solstices, this is like striking a tuning fork for the next 3 months until the next equinox or solstice. It's like a backdrop energy, if you like. And the ancient peoples knew that at these times of equinox and solstice, that they were very powerful, that the veil to the higher energies was much thinner. It's almost like there were times of portals where they could access that higher information more readily. And that's why it's such a great time, the day before, the day of, to meditate, to get into group meditations. It makes the energy even more powerful. So, and that we are going to have another surge of energy around about this Libra equinox, and just feel it coming down the track. And the surges of energy keep on coming because the Earth is passing through the photon belt, which it only does roughly every 12,000 years. But nevertheless, the solstices and equinoxes are very powerful for these big waves of energy. We also, if we're looking down the timeline, I think we're going to have another huge one on the winter solstice as well. So that's why they're so important to kind of maximize the opportunity we're given at this time. So at this Libra equinox, we have another T-square. It is full of intensity. We have a very dominant T-square between the moon at 21 of Aries. Remember, the moon in mundane astrology is the people. The moon at 21 of Aries coming on to Eris at 24 of Aries, opposing Mercury at 24 of Libra, and they are squaring Pluto at about 24 of Capricorn. So the moon with Eris in Aries, boy, that is strong. That's a strong, assertive, public pushback, outcry, very much about fairness and equality. Mercury in Libra, justice. Something else that's important, I just want to backtrack, something I forgot to say about the full moon. The sun is in an out of sign conjunction to Mars at the full moon, 3 degrees of Libra, Mars is at. Sun is at 28 of Virgo. When we have that, Mars wants to act, it wants to fight. Mars rules Aries, it wants to do something. In Libra, it wants to fight for others. It wants to fight for justice. So it could be very interesting to see, because that energy is kind of picked up again here at the Libra equinox, just a couple of days later, where we've got strong Aries energy, strong Mars, strong Aries, it's the same thing, about the people demanding to be heard, every single person demanding to be heard, nobody being peripheral, nobody being marginalized, no subdivisions of society, whether it's race or religion or national, whatever it is. Because Eris is very much against elitism and wants this feeling of inclusivity, everybody needing to be heard. And Mercury in Libra is also saying equality and justice. So a very strong picture setting up the next 3 months, and that the astrology for the next 3 months is, you probably don't want to hear this, but exceptionally strong. But we don't have to live at that 3D level, because if you're watching the nightly news, which, I stopped watching mainstream media almost 2 years ago, and it's made a massive difference in my life, I have to say. But if you're watching that, you will you can absolutely say, yes, that is a reality for sure. It's dense, it's contracted, lots of scary stuff. That is a reality, but it doesn't have to be your reality. And that's really important to understand, what a multitude of timelines, what an infinity of timelines we have available to us. And everybody is really on their own individual timeline now. They're big collective kind of bands of frequency, but within that, everybody's on their individual timeline. So I think just to say, because it's so easy to say, well, it's spiritual bypassing if you don't look at that. You've got to know what's happening in society. You've got to know what's happening in the world. And indeed, this is part of our mastery, to have the strength to say, despite knowing that, I can still keep my frequency high. So when kind of negative stuff comes in at me that people send me, and I can feel my frequency dropping, I will simply say, not my reality, or not my timeline, or see a big delete button or a big red cross or something like that, saying, not mine. It's existing, but it's not mine. I'm going to put my attention, my energy, and my focus over here. And that's what I'm going to create from. So I'd really say, make bliss your obsession, make peace your obsession as many times in the day as you can. And I know it's super scary stuff out there, but that's why it's so important to move to a different place emotionally. So try to drop into bliss, use that moon Neptune at the full moon, try and drop into peace as often as you can, and also make high frequency your obsession. Because the more you do that, the more you will be creating from a very high place, not a very low place. You know, we're creating from the inside out. We know this. And last time around, I just at the end of the video, I happened to mention plasma. And since then, I've had a lot of people writing to me saying, tell me more, tell me more. Well, I don't know anymore yet. I'm just very interested in it. And so you've really got to do an internet search. But just this morning, actually, I was involved in I was attending an online conference, and I heard Penny Kelly, Penny Penny Kelly, who's a wonderful, wise, brilliant woman, talking about plasma. And I won't be quoting her exactly, but essentially what she was saying is that plasma is produced from the electromagnetic fields of energy in the universe. And they start to form filaments, if you like, almost filaments of light, and fractals and particles. This is the whole quantum physics shift from wave to particle in a little more detail. And because those filaments are starting to form a grid or an electromagnetic lattice, if you like, particles start to attach to that grid. It's like our skeletal, it's like an architect's plan, if you like. It's our skeletal next step into matter, into reality. And that I got really excited about, because I think the more we know that the more coherent we are in our energy, the more coherent plasma, the patterns in plasma, the fractals, the forms that it's creating, the more coherent they are to produce what's coming down the road, to produce our future, our experiences, our reality, what we're going to meet day to day. When we are low frequency, the energy is very incoherent around us, scattered. So, but because, as I said last time, we have this idea that we are creating from that something intangible as yet, not fully formed, not fully matter, but wafty, still wave, still ether in one sense, electromagnetically charged ether, if you like. But it's this substance, which some people can see, some sensitive people can actually see plasma. These whitish forms that people have around them. Then I think you start to get a much greater sense of empowerment, because, yeah, I can affect that. Yeah, that's way easier than affecting a brick or a table. So it's just a little bit more information. I hope that's given you some help. Penny Kelly has written heaven knows how many books, so there may be a lot more information in her books about plasma. She's a great lady, and I really recommend her to you. So it's a lot in this second half of September, but also, as I say, October is a huge month too. So hope that's helped you. If you'd like more information about my books, my teaching videos, just check out my website, pamgregory.com. And thanks so much for listening, and bye for now.